All right, guys, we're going to talk about what the causes of weathering. There's different things that cause weathering, right? We talked a little about in the last one how water breaks rocks apart. And we know weathering is where rocks get broken apart. Now we're going to specifically talk about how each of those processes tear a rock apart, whether it's plant roots, or ice, or rain, or water, acid rain. We're going to drill a little deeper and see each part of those process tears rock apart. Okay, here we go. Causes of weathering. Weathering by wind. Wind can weather or wear away rock. Wind can pick up small pieces of sediment such as sand. Sediment is the material that comes from the weathering of rock. The wind slams sand against the rock and chips away at it. The rock becomes smooth and rounded, just like a piece of wood that has been rubbed with sandpaper. This type of weathering of a rock's surface is called abrasion, or we heard it called sandblasting. I don't know if you've ever been on a beach when the wind kicks up, but it will hurt you. It'll sting you. I've been there. Wind-blown sediment causes the abrasion of rock, right? And it just makes that rock real smooth. It like sandblasts it, right? Wind blows sediment against rocks and wears them away. We'll skip that right there. Look at that. Wind-blown rocks. See how round they are? Weathering by water. Have you ever noticed that rocks in a river or at the beach are often smooth and rounded? Just like the wind, moving water carries sediment, such as sand and gravel. The sediment in the water constantly bumps and rubs against the larger rocks. Eventually, the surface of the rocks wear away. The rocks become smoother, more rounded, and smaller. Rushing water weathers these rocks in the river. See how smooth they are? Sediment in the rushing water causes abrasion, making the rocks smooth. Again, it's another form of sandblasting in the water, right? See how smooth those rocks are? Moving water can weather rock in a big way. For example, the fast-moving Colorado River formed the Grand Canyon. Sediment carried along by the water scraped and chipped away rock on the sides and the bottom of the river. It has taken millions of years for the Colorado River to carve the deep canyon. Today, the Grand Canyon measures over 1.6 kilometers or 1 mile deep in places. Weathering may be a slow process, but over time, it can make huge changes. Look at the Grand Canyon. Look at all that right there. Look here. Look at the sides of it. See this right there? Weathering right here, right? That river was up here at one time, and it kept working and working and working and working, chipping away until it carved this canyon. And that's what remains of the river. Pretty amazing stuff, right? All right. Well, weathering by plants. What do you think it happens when the roots of this tree grow into the cracks of the rock? As the tree grows, the roots get bigger. The expanding roots push against the sides of the crack and force the crack to widen. And eventually, the crack gets wide enough to split the rock apart. I don't know if you've seen this on sidewalks in your neighborhood, but I have. If you go outside, you could probably find trees that are growing close to the cement, and you can see how the tree cracks and lifts up the pads. That's weathering and erosion by a plant root, right? It says, observe how the tree roots grow across the flat rock and into the cracks. See how they're going right into the cracks there? Look at that. Look how big those roots are. When those roots get down into those cracks and they grow bigger, they're going to push the rock apart in opposite directions, and it's going to break those rocks apart. Pretty good stuff, right? Weathering by ice. Ice can weather rock too. Sometimes water seeps into a small crack in rocks. When the temperature drops below freezing, the water turns to ice. As the water freezes, it expands or takes up more space. The ice acts like a wedge pushing against the sides of the rock. making the crack wider. Over time, more water seeps into the crack and the process repeats. The repeated freezing and thawing of water can split the rock apart. What do you think will finally happen to this rock? Yeah, look at this, man. Water's going to get down in here, right? It's going to get down in here. And then it's going to get cold and it's going to freeze. And when, I don't know if you guys know this, but when water freezes, it gets a little bit bigger, it expands. And so as that frozen ice expands, right, it's going to push this rock apart. So what do you think is going to happen eventually, right? It's going to crack that rock right in half. All right. So here we go. What is a sediment? Describe abrasion by wind and water. All right, this is what I want you to do. This is the one I want you to do. I'm only going to do one for this one. I want you to compare how are weathering by plants and ice similar, right? So plants versus ice. How is it similar? How are they the same, right? Okay, good luck. We talked about how what the tree roots did as the tree roots grow down into the rock, right? And we talked about how ice goes down into a crack. So they both go down into a crack, and they do what? They expand. So how are they similar? I sort of just gave it to you, but I want you to put it together in a nice little couple of sentences. Okay? Tell me how those are similar. All righty, Mr. Tadero, out.